Call to order the Tuesday, January 8th, 2019 meeting of the City of Davenport Historic Preservation Commission. If you have a cell phone, please place it in silent mode or turn it off. We welcome everyone who is watching us at home on the city's cable TV channel. The Commission has before it the consideration of the meeting from December 11th, 2018. Are there any changes, deletions, or additions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of December 11th, 2018 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the minutes are approved. We'll move on to communications. Does staff have anything? I would just like to mention to the commission that going forward here, once we get through the worst of the winter months, we'll begin work on a rewrite of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. I would encourage members to start looking at the ordinance, writing down your thoughts, so that we can begin that process with a work session and hopefully get something done by the spring. Is there any other commission members with communications tonight? Seeing none, we have no old business. We'll move on to new business. Item number 1, I will open a public hearing to review and a recommendation on the proposed National Register of Historic Places Davenport East Side Industrial and Motor Row Historic District. The proposed district is located from Perry Street to the west between East River Drive and 2nd Street, jogging east to East Pershing Avenue, to East 3rd Street, east to Iowa, south to East 2nd, terminating at the Government Bridge, and south to the 200 block of East River Drive. Staff report.
As you recall, the Downtown Davenport Partnership has hired a consultant to study the downtown, see if I think the initial goal is to see if the entire downtown could be listed on the National Register as a historic district. They was encouraged that they break that into one or more parts. And so they are moving forward. There is a formal application to list this proposed historic district on the National Register. And this is for the east side. I'm told that they're working on another potential district on the west side. And so everybody seems to be pretty excited about this. The City of Davenport is a certified local government, which gives us certain review authority. And so when there's a proposed National Register district or property to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places, the City of Davenport Historic Preservation Commission is given an opportunity to review and provide comments on that. And so the formal motion is to provide recommendation for approval and authorize the chairperson to sign the Certified Local Government National Register form. Staff agrees with the nomination that its significance is within criterion A, historical events. That's what the consultant had listed as the significance of the historic district, and so city staff supports it and recommends the commission recommend approval and authorize the chair to sign the form.
Thank you. Is there any comment from commission members? Commissioner Cordes?
Yes. My only comment on this is that I think two parts. I think the district has a lot of, as it's defined, has a lot of significance. There are some architectural gems in there too, but since not everything in the district is architectural, the district is being nominated based on history in a broader sense. I think the nomination is very well prepared. I think it's well thought out as to the logic where the boundaries are, and I strongly support it.
Are there any other comments from commission members? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to recommend this proposed National Register of Historic Places district and authorize the chair to sign the document that the commission recommends it.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Cordis,
Yes.
Keel, Wanio, Cochran, and Free.
Yes. We'll move on to other business. It's that time of year and the election of officers. I will now open up the nomination for chair. Yes, you can renominate me.
If you would like.
Both Bob and I would continue to serve if the commission so wishes.
Well, then I'd like to nominate John and Bob as their current positions to be maintained.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. Roll call.
If I understand correctly, we're doing these both at the same time? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. Keel? Wanio? Cochran? Cordis? And Free.
Yes. We'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. If you have other business, yes, we can address it.
Yeah, I have a question, and a question slash suggestion directed to staff. And my question is, what is the process that would be involved what's the process that would be involved to expand or move the boundary lines of a national register, of a local landmark district, of a Davenport district? For example, the Hamburg local district is smaller, and it's different boundary lines than the National Register district. If there was a desire to expand the local district, how would that process work? How would it be initiated? How would it proceed? And my suggestion is that if that's not something that is written down or published in a bullet point kind of format that is readily available so it could be easily distributed, we might want to think about preparing that in such a fashion.
I might mention the history of why the local landmark district does not meet the National Register. Back in 1993, when the neighborhood organization started, they ended up, it requires, I believe, 50% plus one to send a nomination to the city. If the local residents do it, they could not get those kind of numbers in the entire district, but in the existing local landmark district, they could get that, so they moved forward with that. The commission is also allowed to bring a nomination forward too. We have resisted that in the past because we have not ever felt that without the property owners on board, there would be little likelihood of the city council approving it.
So, to answer your question directly, the process is specified in the Historic Preservation Ordinance. And it reads, "The legal owners of record or the commission may nominate a single structure for designation as local landmark or an area as a historic district." So it has provide for the legal owner or the commission. I think this cheers to your point. There is a process where the commission could say we want to expand the district, and it would ultimately go to the city council. Regardless of whether it's the owners or the commission, it has to be adopted through an ordinance through city
Through the
council.
city council.
Yeah, and the second sentence of that, it says to nominate a district for designation by the legal owners of record. So legal owners are requesting a petition nomination must be signed and submitted by the owners of record representing at least 51% of the total area of the proposed district excluding right-of-ways. And so there is a process where you could expand it. I think the chairperson has expressed that, it might be a messy situation for the city council to potentially adopt an ordinance that doesn't have the full support of the community. But the process is, in my opinion, very, very clear.
Okay.
If the commission were to decide for the commission to do it, I would say it would make sense to have a work session with council before we even begin the process and explain to them why it's important that the National Register and the local landmark should be the same. In 1993, as I said before, they had petitions that they went to the owners of record. The city not only exempted the right-of-ways of streets, they also chose all public property to not participate in the nomination. It had to be privately owned. I don't know, the ordinance is unclear on whether
assume-
if they own land inside
I
here.
would assume it'd be to take a neutral.
Yeah. But,
Well, especially with it being on the heels, perhaps, of the, Hamburg.
update.
Yeah. At least we have a clear understanding of what, is contributing, and the district actually, shrank a little bit
Mm-hmm.
based on some inappropriate rehabilitation.
I know every board of directors since 1993 has wished that the two lines match,
Yes.
especially on West 6th Street, where you have one side of the street in and one side of the street out. And it gets very discouraging at times, some of the stuff that happens on the side of the street that's out.
The, one of the things that is possible that may have changed over time is that the support for the local district within the bounds of the local district may be exceptionally more than 51%.
I think,
And if that's the case, it may give the power in the vote of the thing to bring in more area, even if there may or may not be support in those other areas.
although really we're talking about the area that's excluded now, that would have to be 51%, correct, Brian? Because you already have a local landmark.
I think I need some legal guidance
Yeah.
on that, but it's similar to a rezoning. Sometimes you have a parcel that's zoned this and you want to do an expansion. So I've always taken it's better to rezone this and this all to one zoning classification, because it's been my experience that it gets messy if you don't. Because then you start providing recommendations and conditions for things that are happening on a different piece of property, if that makes any sense.
I mean, if our corporation council would say that, yes, it would be the total amount of everything inside the National Register district has to equal, as opposed to just inside those areas that aren't included in the local landmark now, it might make for an easier process for the neighborhood association. And I guess you could get some clarification on that.
Be happy to.
Is it already in a design improvement district?
Right,
And what would be
so-
the major differences between the?
Well, we have currently a residential infill design overlay that applies to, generally speaking, there are exceptions, housing south of Duck Creek. There are issues with that because it deals with new construction and very large additions to existing structures. As we found out recently, it does not apply to a substantial renovation of an existing building that doesn't expand the footprint. So there is, with the newer ordinances, there are design criteria that are not necessarily geared towards being historic. They are generally geared towards being traditional style of development, but allowing for a different use of more conventional building material. If it's in a local historic landmark district, any exterior altercation requiring a building permit, requiring a building permit would come under the purview of and review and approval of this commission. And so you're reviewing things with much more attention to detail of historic sensitivity and material being used and the significant architectural features and trying to make sure that any alteration or replication or replacement is kind of being respectful of that significance.
Are there any other questions for staff? Seeing none, is there any more business from commission members? Seeing none, again, I'll ask, is there anyone from the public that would like to address us? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the commission is adjourned.